Okay, Horos, I keep wanting to call it Osirix, uh, is a DICOM viewer, meaning this is a DICOM image. I imported it by going to import from right here, and then I selected the data set. In this case, we're using Pelvix, Pelvix, and there it comes in with two studies. One has 225 images and is a study done post-operatively, and this is a, uh, a preoperative study of a woman with a bad pelvic fracture. And a DICOM image is just an image which is captured in 3D space by a CT scan, an MRI, confocal microscopy, really anything like that. It's the universal image format for imaging. And we're going to use it to get bone. We're going to extract bone from this, but we're also going to do some other things. So I'm going to pick the study that has more data in it. And I know it's a good study because if I move through it down here, if I hit the space bar, it's very smooth, right? It doesn't jump. There are not big jumps in the data. In other words, it doesn't go from here to here. There's lots of slices. That's what we want. So double click on the image. And that will load it into the next phase. And I'm going to show you what these things do. 3D MPR is the first one. And what that allows you to do is it has cardinal views, and as you drag these around, it updates in the other views wherever those crosshairs are. You can rotate this thing, which is a completely confusing thing. All right, so let's see here, Shift, and then I'm going to drag up. Shift, click, drag up will zoom. Command, click will move. And then Control will, let's see here, one of these should rotate. Oh, rotate is if you grab this here, and this will rotate it this way. All right, so this is the way it works. Let's say you wanted to center this thing right here, and you wanted to orient this, and this allows you to see in your other views through, it basically aligns your other views. Anyhow, it doesn't really help you very much. The way we use this is we would use it to measure things, right? So what is the width of the sacrum, for instance? You could click on this item right here and click from here to here and let go. 9.203 centimeters. And this is what it's designed for. It's designed to allow people to, if you wanted to select the volume of the pelvis, for instance, you could do this. And let's see here, I should be able to, whoops. Well, if that were at all visible, hang on a second, let me do that again. What I'm getting at is that once you trace this thing out, it will give you a mechanism to calculate the volume. And if we come back here, there's an area, and if we did it in multiple groups, it would show us the volume as well. Anyhow, and it tells us the length. Anyhow, this is how radiologists use this. Now, everything you do here is non-destructive, and you can always revert series if you change anything or you delete anything. We'll show you that. All right, let's look at some of these other things. 3D MPR. That's one we looked at at the beginning. That's the first one we looked at. Okay, so we looked at that one. 3D, oops, I didn't mean to do that. That one does basically the same thing. So we're not going to go through 2D orthogonal. We're going to go to 3D curved. And the way you might use a 3D curved is, and you can see I've already done it here. I drew this red line using this feature right here. And what it does is this fourth view down here, it straightens out. It's as if you sliced it down here and then laid it out flat. So see how you can see the interspace between the vertebrae and the sacrum all the way down through the coccyx. It does it here. And also it's lined up here. And so we can line those things up here. Anyhow, that's how you use 3D MPR. Not 3D MPR. 3D curved MPR. I don't really use it that much. One of the other things I should mention is most of these will have a function where you can turn on the maximum intensity projection. And then you have a thick slab slider. If you set it down to 2, you're seeing 2 slices at once. If you drag this up, you're seeing multiple slices. And so now we're starting to see some of the pelvic fracture. And you can load it up to a certain number. I don't know what it is, 128 or something. All right. So let's turn that off. You can also select your cardinal views here, which is really useful if you need to, if you just need to get an image to draw from. All right. What we're going to do now is we're going to look at 3D volume rendering. The first thing I want to do is I want to change the background color. If you don't see background here, you can add it from Customize Toolbar and dragging from this list into your menu bar. All right, so I'm going to change the background to a lighter gray so I can see what I'm doing. Isn't that a novel idea? I'm going to click on 16-bit. And I generally like this curve to look like this. And this curve is showing you the value. So height is opacity. And it says, so see the alpha down here? That's what it's showing us. The value is the value on the curve, meaning the histogram of the data. This is all the data, this gray curve down here. And the gray curve down here shows air, and then it's going to progressively get to denser and denser material as you go up. And as we drag this color lookup table, it will apply it to only the densest material. So here we're only getting the densest part of the bone, the radio-opaque filament in the catheter, you can see. And if we drag this thing to the left, we're going to get skin. And if we keep going, we're eventually going to get bedding, and eventually air will be encapsulated in the CLUT, the color lookup table. You can see this thing gets compressed if I drag it too high. So what we want to do is, and I'm just going to show you this because it's the best way to do it. If you drag this to the right to where you have the bone, and then if I hit the left bracket key, I'll get this thing so I can rotate it up like this. I'm going to take the scissor tool. I'm going to click, 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 click. I don't know why I have to say the word click, but I do. And then I'm going to hit delete. And it's going to delete everything in there throughout the entire section. And if you watch carefully, you'll see the histogram change because the data of the scan now encompasses fewer of the pixels at that value. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make one more scan, one more color lookup table rather, and I'm going to drag it down here. That's the wrong one. I'm going to drag this one down. And these are just arbitrary colors that I've set. Set it to blue. And I'm going to set this one to dark blue. Blue and dark blue. And so now we can use this. We can raise it up or lower it. And it kind of creates a depth of field. It creates some environment for us. And lowering the value will lower its opacity as it's applied to the color lookup table. The key commands are Option, click, drag to the left will compress a curve. Option, click, dragging up and down, directly up and down, will move that curve along your data. Now it doesn't update always perfectly, but as soon as you let go, you'll get it. So and this thing keeps, if I stretch this thing out, it will encompass a greater range. And again, it's the same thing as dragging it down here. The way we're going to use this is we're going to, and this is great for making a pretty picture, right? Or for getting detail and seeing how stuff is going, but I want to delete this curve. And what I want to do is I want to compress this curve. Option, click, drag to the left. And then I want to click and drag, Option, click, drag up and down to move this until it shows me only bone with a little bit of junk in it. Like that, something like that. And the reason I want a little bit of junk in there is I want, it's better to have stuff stuck on when in ZBrush. So see this bone, see how nice and smooth it is underneath all the junk. Watch what happens when I drag this curve to the right. If I get rid of that junk, holes will start to appear in the femoral head. And we can play with these numbers going on, but basically what we're doing here is we're using this curve to assess where the threshold is between bone and nothing. All right, so let's say it's 189. I think it's actually lower than that, but let's say it's that. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to remember that number and we're going to plug it in here under 3D surface rendering, 189. And we're going to set this to 1, and we're going to set the resolution high, and we're going to click OK. Once it's finished, we're going to click Export. We're going to say, from this dialog right here, we're going to say Export as .obj file, and we're going to send it out to for use in ZBrush. This is taking forever. If it fails to do it pretty quickly, I'm just going to end the movie. There we go. So that looks pretty good, and we can figure out the rest of that in. We're only going to use the unbroken half of the pelvis, not surprisingly. That looks pretty good. All right, and so then we would go up here and we'd say export as wavefront, and we would just export it. And it's a pretty big file, but we can deal with it in ZBrush. All right, that's it, and I will see you guys in the demo.